Ashley here with hearthookhome.com, and today we are learning how to crochet the gorgeous Tunisian full stitch. This stitch is very similarly made to the Tunisian knit stitch. The only difference is where you insert your hook to pull up your loops to make your stitches. Let's learn how to crochet the Tunisian full stitch. In order to crochet the Tunisian full stitch, you need to start with any number of chains. There is no multiple here. So here I have 10 chains to start. What I'm going to do is find the second chain from my hook. As with normal, traditional Tunisian crochet, I'm going to pull up a loop in the back bar of that second chain from my hook, and I'm going to pull up a loop in each of these chains all the way until I get to the end. When I get to the end, I should have as many loops on my hook as I did chains to start. So if I started with 10 chains, I should have 10 loops on my hook. Now we are ready for the backward pass, and this backward pass will be the same for this row and all rows making the Tunisian full stitch. What we're going to do first is chain 1, and that will be the outside of our work. Now we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way to the end of the row. That is the foundation row of Tunisian crochet. Now we are ready to start the actual row of Tunisian full stitch. What we do here with Tunisian full stitch is that we are offsetting every row from the one before it. So you're alternating a 2-row repeat. The first of those 2-row repeats is we're going to insert our hook. Instead of going through any part of this stitch, which is how we make other Tunisian crochet stitches, we are going straight through the space in between the stitches. And that's all it is. Go through that space there, pull up a loop. Make sure that this one is not super loose here. I always like to finagle these two to make them nice and settled. Otherwise they can get really large and out of shape. So now that I've gone into that first space here, I'm going to find the next space in between stitches and pull up a loop, going straight on through the whole thing, straight on through that space. Find the next space, pull up a loop, find the next, and the next, all the way till you get to the end. Now, the alternating aspect of this means that since this is the first row, since we went into the first space here, we're going to skip the last space here, okay? So you should, at this point, have 9 loops on your hook because we should have 10 total when we pick up this outside loop. So insert your hook, skip this last space here, insert your hook under both sides of that outside stitch, just like this, and pull up a loop. And now you should have 10 loops on your hook. It may help you, there's a few things we'll talk about here in a little bit, but it may help you to count your loops as you're adding them to know whether or not you need to skip or work that last space. So we'll alternate that row with the next one. So to do our backward pass, we're going to do our chain 1, and we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way until we get to the end of this row. Now we are going to alternate that row with this row. So on the last row, since we went into this first space here, we're going to skip the first space here. This is the alternating aspect. So instead of working into this first one here, we're going to find the next one, which is here, and we're just going to go straight on through and pull up that loop. Again, make sure that this is a little bit on this smaller side. I find with the full stitch, this is very easy to get large and out of shape, so just pay attention to that outside loop. Now I'm going to go in each space across the entire piece and pull up loops in between these stitches. When I get to the end, I am going to pull up a loop in this last space here. Since we skipped the first space, we are going into the last space. If we use the first space, we skip the last space, right? So it's either or, and that's how we're alternating to keep our stitch count the same. So pull up our loop in the outside stitch here, and I should again have those 10 loops on my hook. To do my backward pass, I'm going to chain 1 and yarn over, pull through 2, all the way to the end. Now we're going to do this first row that we did, first of the Tunisian full rows, where we go into the first space here in between those stitches. And then in each stitch to end, and since we are going into the first here, we're going to skip the last here. Like I said, it helps if you count how many loops you have, especially if you have a pretty large project, to make sure that you're not adding additional loops. So this last space here, since we went into the first one, we are skipping that one. We're going to go straight to the outside stitch instead and pull up our loop in that outside stitch and pull that on up. Now again, we should have the 10 loops on our hook. Yarn over, pull through 1, so that's chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way to the end. One more offset row and then we will fasten off together. So since we went into the first one, the first space on this row, we're going to go into the second space on this row. So not this one here, but this one right here. We're just going to pull up that loop and go around all of these in these spaces all the way to the end. And remember, since we skipped the first one here, we are going to pull up a loop in this last one here. Now we're going to find the 2 loops to the outside stitch of the row below, right here, both sides of that V. Pull up a loop, chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2, 2, 2, 2, all the way to the end. And now we will fasten off using the Tunisian Full Stitch slip stitch. Tunisian Full Slip Stitch. That's very hard to say, but easier to do in practice. Okay, so when we go to fasten off, we are going to maintain the pattern as we have been. So since I went into the second space here, I'm going to go into the first space here, just through that space, and slip stitch. Again, make sure that this isn't too large, nice and tidy. Find the next space here and slip stitch. Keep on going into that space between stitches and slip stitching, just like this. And again, it's important, as with all Tunisian crochet, that your slip stitches here are not too tight, especially if you plan on adding a border later. You want to be able to get into those stitches. So because I went into the first one here, I am skipping this last one here, and I'm just going to go into the outside 2 loops and finish that slip stitch. And that is it. That is all there is to the full stitch. I absolutely love this stitch. It has such great texture to it. Look at that squish factor. I have a couple different patterns that use this stitch, including a new scarf pattern here. One of the great things about this stitch is the color changes, right? If you have a color changing yarn, because of the way that these stitches are worked into the row below it, any color changes look absolutely phenomenal. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love it. Cannot wait to get this scarf pattern published. It's going to transition to this beautiful green and then this beautiful blue. It's going to be beautiful. It will be available for free on Heart Hook Home as soon as I am finished it. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to crocheting more with you soon.